Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 from the High Slot. I am your co-host, Chad Diaminisis, and I am here with my co-host, Bill. And Bill, we did it again. We went a long time between podcasts here, but it was worth it. We have some big news coming today, so a lot to go over, and we're going to look at the Central Division, but no, it's fun to get back into it.
Yeah, we took a lot of time off, but it was for good reason. We've been behind the scenes coming out with a new thing that we'll announce here in a little bit and a couple additions. I'm really excited to announce these things, but I'm even more excited to start talking hockey again. It's right around the corner. We're about a month away from the season starting, and the prospect camps are getting underway, so it's go time. We got to do some preseason predictions and tell you team by team what's going on, and then we'll right before we know it, it's go time for everywhere in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, camp is right on the corner for prospects, and then right behind that is training camp. I mean, we're 2 weeks out from, well, not meaningful hockey games, but some preseason games, and we're ready to get going here. So before we jump into what we're going to talk about today, let's just get to the big news. I'll announce the first part, and I'll let Bill announce the second part. We'll do a little sharing here. The first part is we are going to be launching a From the High Slot website. That'll include our podcasts. Also, we're going to be doing some writing. We're going to be including articles on the website about what's going on around the league. And also a few things that maybe down the road you'll see as well. But that's just part 1. Bill, fill me in. What we got part 2 here?
Yeah, part 2 goes along with the writing. We are adding 2 guys to the team. They will mostly be doing some writing with the articles, but when the time presents itself, they will be joining on the podcast. I think it'd be fun to have a third guy jump in every once in a while and give his input and just kind of give a different perspective of the league and what's going on. So with that being said, the 2 guys we are having join are Rob Batcho, who'll be a lead NHL writer, and with us tonight, Kyle Whipple, who will be doing also lead NHL writer, but he's also going to be doing a little more with the podcast, too. He brings a lot more of a actual playing hockey background. Kyle, if you just want to say a couple words.
Thanks for having me. Big fan of the podcast. And just from playing hockey all my life, I think I could add some ideas that maybe not agree all the time, but just from playing, just different points of view on the game. And happy to be here and happy to help.
Well, Whip, we're happy to have you here. We couldn't be more happy to add a third voice to the group today. A little bit of a round table action we're going to have going on here. But just to close out our announcement, we'll have more on Twitter on our official launch date of the website. It's really not too far away, probably over the weekend or beginning of next week. So that's extremely exciting. We already have some articles written, that'll be up there and some interesting stuff. So I would definitely get to it right away and see what myself and some of our writers have up there. It's good content, some good information. So we're super excited about that. But enough of the announcement stuff. Let's get into the hockey. So today we're going to take a look at the Central Division. We're going to do a weekly preview of each division. So we have 4 weeks till the season starts, so we kind of plan this out pretty well. So we'll start with the Stanley Cup Champions Division. This is why we chose this one. Of course, the hardest division. Yes, exactly. So where do we start here? We look at this division. Bill, I'll start with you. Everyone had 90 points. We're Blues 109, Preds 104, 102, 199, 92, 90. This is a tight race. This is a tight division. It's going to be tough next year figuring out how we're going to predict this.
Yeah, looking over the last week or so, trying to decide who I'm going to put at the top, who I'm going to put at the bottom. It's basically, at one point I'm thinking to myself, I might as well just flip a coin. Whoever lands his head is making the playoffs. But more seriously, they all beat up on each other. I don't know how they all do so well. Maybe just because the division's so good that they raise their game, and then when they play outside of the division, it's kind of more of a cakewalk. They're all heavier teams, and they kind of all play similar. So with that being said, I think we can jump into, might as well start with the lead of last and go with the St. Louis Blues, who didn't do too much over the offseason.
So, Kyle, I'm throwing into the fire here. Blues, all they did was get rid of Oshie, add Brower. They kept Hitchcock. Same team pretty much. Is stay at the top, take a step down. What do you think? Where are they going?
I think they take a step down. I don't think they should have kept Hitchcock after having such a good team for 2 or 3 years and having almost zero postseason success. I think they needed a change, I think the change for taking Oshie out and bringing in Brower is it might be the switch they need, but I don't see that making them become the team that will make a postseason run.
Yeah, I mean, when you're predicting out the division, with St. Louis is, I thought the same thing. They're going to jump down. But, I mean, they always get it done in the regular season. I mean, it's just the playoffs they can't get it done. So I think to myself, well, geez, are they going to be a good regular season team again and then choke in the playoffs? The Blues are a tough team to figure out. I mean, they got a lot of talent. Shattenkirk, Pietrangelo, Tarasenko, Backus. I mean, it goes on. They got Schwartz. They got Laterra. And it goes on and on and on and on. And, I mean, this team should win playoff games, but they don't. And, I mean, the Blues are tough. I don't know. I, too, had them stepping down a notch. We'll get to our full division predictions at the end, but I have them coming down. I don't have them winning the division this year. Bill, what about you?
If they drop, it probably is not going to be much. I think the big wild card this year is how much they're going to use Jake Allen. They said that they'll probably give Allen more playing time instead of Elliott having more of the big role because they want to see what they have in their young goalie, which I don't think is a bad thing. I do think he didn't have as great a playoff, but I've liked Allen at least for the last couple of years, and Elliott's kind of just your middle of the road goalie. You know what you're gonna get from him. He's good, but I mean it's time to see what you got in the young Allen, especially when your team is kind of just stuck and you don't know why they're stuck. I mean, no one can really figure it out, and when you don't get rid of Hitchcock, I mean, what can you really expect different? It's not like he's going to be able to all of a sudden bring something new to the table as an old coach. But like you said, I think the main point is they've always been a good regular season team. I don't see that changing this year. So I think they'll still be up at around 100 points. And I still think you're going to look at them to be at the top of the division. The problem is just going to be if they can get over the hump this year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to watch. With Hitchcock, it's interesting too because let's say St. Louis starts off bad. Is he gone 20 games, 30 games into the year if they start off tough? Do you have a short leash? Is it 10 games into the season? If they start off 5-5, 4-6. I mean, does he go that early in the season? It's something interesting to watch. St. Louis is going to be a very interesting team this year. So let's keep jumping on the list here. Let's go to another interesting team, the Predators. Second place in the division last year, 104 points. A team on the rise, led by great goaltending. They had a couple additions. They brought in Hodson. We kind of know him from Buffalo. They brought Ribeiro back, which I think is a huge signing. And they added Jackman to their defense from St. Louis. A little grit. But Bill, we'll start with you this time. Nashville. What do you see happening there?
Yeah, they didn't lose much. They lost Franzen, who they got a little bit ago anyways. Santorelli, Stahlberg, they didn't really use much. I will say Fisher was out for a decent amount of last year, which kind of hurt them. And for them to be still at 104 without him, it says something. The only thing that makes me stop and pause is there's two things. One, when Philip Forsberg is basically running your team in the point category, is that going to be able to stay? Is he going to be able to consistently stay at that threshold that nobody really saw coming? And the other thing for me would be if you look at all the teams in the Central, St. Louis, Chicago, even Minnesota, they're all plus 30, plus 40, plus 47 the goal differential. Nashville's always going to be around that like plus 20. And so to me it means that they're kind of winning a lot of close games. So especially in a hockey with a game of bounces, are they going to be able to continue to win those close one-goal games? Pekka Rinne, you got to hope he doesn't get hurt, and you got to hope he stays around that .920 save percentage. If not, it's gonna be trouble. I mean, the good thing, not the only, but the good thing for them is their back end is still good. It's still great. You got Shea Weber, Yossi was really good last year, and I'm missing one, the young
Seth
Jones, yep.
Seth Jones, thank you. He was flying up and down the ice. He looked really good last year, and he's super young. So that's great for them to see, especially them being a defensive team. He's going to provide a little more offense. He's going to give the puck up to the forwards. So Nashville, I want to say, just because the goal differential, they'll drop, but they seem to just stay there. You know what I mean? They're kind of there, and they kind of don't go away. So they'll probably be a little under 100. Maybe they'll probably hang maybe 3 wild cards, somewhere in that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, let me throw this over to you. The offense, like Bill said, is Forsberg. You got Ribeiro. Beyond that, there's not really a lot there. Do you see Nashville just trucking along, 100-point team again, or do you see them falling off a little bit?
I'm seeing them either having 100 points or even better this year, because it all starts from your back end, and starting with Weber and Yossi, who are already proven players. You have Ekholm, Ellis, and Seth Jones, who are all coming off career seasons, all had bigger roles in the playoffs, and I'm really big on Ryan Ellis. Even though he's a bit smaller of a player, just controls the power play when he's out there, good vision. And to touch on what Bill said with Forsberg, he led the team in goals with 26, and the signing of Ribeiro, they get to play with each other again. I think they will just have equal or better year than they had before. And with Rene, I think they have all the pieces, especially on defense, to excel and be even better this year.
Okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from there. The way I look at it is, like I said, there's Forsberg, I'm trying to even think, there's Neal.
They have secondary scoring from Colin Wilson, who had silent 42 points. And I believe they signed Steve Moses, who led the KHL in goals.
Yes, Moses will be interesting to watch. He played well, in the World Championships.
But it's just another thing. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say the Nashville way, but I remember thinking halfway through last season when Colin Wilson was on like a 2-week tear. I'm sitting there like, Colin Wilson, really? Like he's gonna all of a sudden start scoring like crazy? It's kind of what Nashville does. You get that one guy who all of a sudden will get hot when nobody else is doing anything. Or I think that was more when Fisher was hurt. Wilson was playing really well, which is nice and all, but can they keep it up is my question. And to me, the answer right now is I don't know, and I kind of don't think so. So it's definitely going to be don't turn on the games. They're going to be 1-0 games if they are winning. And if you have Pickering in your fantasy this year, congratulations.
Well, let me, before we jump off in Nashville, being from Buffalo, 3 of us, what do we think about Cody Hodgson? Was he the player that we saw last year? Or is he the 40-point, 30-point guy, 20 goals, 15 goals? Kyle, what do you think here? What do you think about Hodgson? You think he can rebound in Nashville? Or you think he's the guy we saw last year in Buffalo, or just didn't seem to have it every night and just not what I guess his expectations were?
I like Cody personally, and I think he needed a fresh start and to get out of Buffalo, and I hope for him Nashville is the place where he can fit in. I do think he has to play with the players that fit his game. Like when he excelled in Buffalo, he was with who? Vanek and Pominville?
Yeah.
I think he needs players like that to help him out. I don't think he can be that guy that's going to carry the play all 3 periods, but I would look for him to have a better season than he did in Buffalo.
I would say this, that if there's any place for Cody Hodgson, if he doesn't make it here in Nashville, he's not making it. Because what's the one thing that everyone in Buffalo complained about? He couldn't play defense. He doesn't have to on this team.
That's true.
Their whole team plays defense. So they can finally just be like, Cody, try and score, because that's what we need. And so I could definitely see him having a good year this year, and maybe even a sneaky good year. He might be your Colin Wilson, if you will. But the thing is, like I said, it just we hated him here because he didn't play defense, and you would see like Ted Nolan in practices grabbing him and putting him in a spot and saying, you need to be here, and then the game goes and he's 20 feet on the other side of the ice. So if he doesn't have to play defense on Nashville, which I don't see any reason why he would, he might be able to focus on his offensive game, and that could be huge for him.
Yeah, one of the things Buffalo did wrong, too, before we jump off in Nashville here is, with Hodgson, is 2 years ago when he had that big year, most of his points came on the power play. He scores his points on the power play. He has good vision. But, in Buffalo last year, that was one of the biggest issues that Murray had with Nolan and Hodgson specifically. He wasn't used right. He didn't play any power play minutes, and I think that hurt his point total. So we'll see how Nashville uses them. To Kyle's point, maybe he has the right guys around now, but are Ryan Smith or Craig Smith and Colin Wilson your guys? I mean, I don't know. So we'll see how that turns out in Nashville. So let's jump here to the Stanley Cup champions. And Bill, we're going to lead it off with you because you're a Hawks fan. So what are you thinking this year of Chicago?
Question mark. Who knows, honestly. You got to love the picking up Dano in the Saad trade.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be huge for them. Even Anisimov, who is kind of, nationally seen as the big piece in the trade. I think in a couple of years it's going to be Dano. That's going to be like
a couple of years. About this year, it's going to be Dano, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it might even. But either way, basically what I'm saying is Dano is going to end up being the big piece of that trade, and Anisimov is going to help. They also got Daly, and they got Morin back, Trop, a couple slower guys.
Don't forget about Garba, too. I mean, he's a good analytic guy. He's got some good numbers, some possession numbers. I think he'll be a good bottom six guy for them. Got him in the Sharp trade, too.
Mm-hmm. But what I was going to say is the additions are nice, but here's your subtractions. Patrick Sharp, Saad, Oduya, Richards, and Antti Ranta.
Yeah, but Ranta didn't want him to win, so is he really a subtraction?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
What I was going to say is basically those four, the big four in the front, Sharp, Saad, Oduya, and Richards, how much is that going to hurt? How much is it going to hurt the team? And is like Teuvo Teravainen and Dano, are they going to be able to step up and take those roles now? So I could definitely see them, especially with the amount of hockey they've played lately, having a kind of Kings of last year, this year. They might miss, or they could squeak into a wild card. The other big question mark is what is going on with Patrick Kane? Is he going to play? Is he going to be like? Who knows what's going to happen? I will say, the whole situation from his standpoint, you can't do that. You need to know that at this point in your career, when you're this big, you can't be making decisions like that, putting yourself in that situation. Whether he did it or not, who knows? We may never know. But you got to think, best worst case scenario, you're going to a trial or you're paying a bunch of money and people are going to think you did it. So there's really no good end for Patrick Kane here. I mean, I guess the good end is he somehow kind of gets rid of it and continues to play. But where's his head even going to be? So it's just, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, you obviously you got Hossa, you got Seabrook, you got Keith, you got Taves. So they're not going to be a huge fall off. You still got your big guns. You got Crawford still in net, who's been playing well. And so like I said, this year could go either way for them. I could see them dropping off. But with Quenneville, you can never say no. So I think they get in, but it's going to be an up and down year, especially early, I think, for Chicago.
Kyle, let me put this question to you, because Bill and I had this conversation, in specific about Kane. We talked about maybe a trade for Kane when all that news came out that teams called after the incident. My point of view was, if Chicago traded Kane, are they really going to miss him? Or if he misses, a part of the season, is Chicago really going to miss him? I understand he's a great player, but I don't know. You tell me, do you think Chicago would really fall off if they didn't have Kane for a good portion of the year, even the entire year?
I think that they would truly miss him because, I understand they still have their core players, but the supporting cast that help win these cups of Sharp, Richards, Oduya, Saad, just with Sharp, Richards, and Saad, how much offense is that? Mm-hmm. Can Dano and Anisimov, and I know Teravainen had a strong playoffs, but
and there's Kruger too. There's you have
I don't think
Ben Smith, Shaw.
I think Shaw's a great player, but I don't like Sharp, Richards, and Saad.
It's another level. Those guys.
They're another level, and I think Dano, Teravainen, Anisimov, they're great players, but to fill that void that was left when they left, especially if Kane leaves out of that core that they have there in Chicago, I would look to – they're still going to be a good team, but I would feel they would pull a LA Kings and just not have enough to make it into the playoffs this year.
I don't think there's any way that they trade him, but just as like a side point to that, you also do have to remember what are you going to get for him. So, I mean, they would miss him, yeah, but, I mean, depending on what you got, maybe not as much.
Would you think a team would really want that baggage of not knowing what you're going to get with Kane?
If he's cleared, why not? I mean, some team would take him. If he's cleared of it, not going to miss any games.
I think there's a lot of GMs out there that just go gaga and see 3 rings and look at all his goals, and they just don't see all the stuff behind the scenes. So they just see the name on the back and, okay, and it's Patrick Kane. Yeah, we'll take him. But like I said, I really don't think they're not going to move him. I mean, ever since the incident, how much have you really heard?
Yeah.
Nothing. They're keeping it under wraps. They're just trying to get as much or as little of it out there as possible, and then they're just going to try and, as much as they can, keep it under the rug. The other thing I will say is like a side thing, how much longer can the mule go?
Yeah.
I mean, Hossa is getting up there. I mean, you can't argue with the production. Even last year in the playoffs, he's been great, but even he's got to fall off at some point.
Yeah, you got to wonder because he keeps solid every year in the playoffs too. He's like the best player in the playoffs. You got to think eventually, Father Time's going to catch up to Hossa, but Chicago's an interesting team to watch this year. Where they go, what happens with their roster. It'll be interesting in Chicago. It's definitely something to watch. And I agree with you guys. I didn't think about it until you said it. With the Kings, with how much hockey the Blackhawks have played over the last few years. I mean, some of those guys, they add a whole nother season of their career to some playoff games they played, if not more than that. So it's
Keith was playing 44 minutes a night.
Yeah, I mean, he had 6 seasons under his career on just in the playoffs alone. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's crazy, but we'll see how that plays out. But I like that LA comparison. So let's jump to our next team here. Minnesota, the sneaky Minnesota Wild. They do this every year. They start off terrible, and then they get a hot goalie, and then they rush at the end, and they're there, and they went off playoff round. But I mean, last year they were more competitive with Chicago. This year they kind of got run over. So Kyle, I'll start with you first. Minnesota, what do you see him doing this year?
I'm thinking same Minnesota team as always. I love Parise, but can you really expect Dubnyk to have the same stretch that he did last year? And they went 28-9-3 to go from 12th in the West up to the first wild card spot. But I think they're one of those teams that's just a little above average, and they don't have all the pieces that they need to be one of the elite teams and make a deep push. Like you said, St. Louis has the same problem. I think they fall in the same category, and I'd expect probably the same season because they didn't do much in the offseason, I don't believe.
Yeah, they got Mike Riley. That's about it. I mean, he's a good add on the blue line, but other than that, not really.
Zach Dalfy.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of Stewart and Brodziak.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota. Thomas Vanek had a down year last year. He had his hernia, but Vanek's hurt every year. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you want to say he's on the end of his career, but kind of.
Like they don't know what to do with him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of
the third line for a while.
Yeah, I mean, really hindsight. He's the Minnesota guy. Get it? And he was going to Minnesota for what, 2 or 3 years? The talk was. I don't really know if he fits there. You never know. Vanek, he's a power play guy, really, for most of his goals. He stands in front of the net, tips. He's not gonna be that guy, that winger that goes up and down the the wall and creates plays. Minnesota is interesting. Dubnyk, I don't know if he can do it again this year. And the same thing with Carey Price. The two of them, I mean, in different ways. Dubnyk had a great second half. Price had a great entire year. But, I mean, can you realistically expect that type of season again? I mean, because that's really what, carried them. And I can't. Ryan Suter wasn't great last year. He was all right, but not Suter-esque. But, I mean, you got a few guys coming. You got Nina Ryder. I think he's a good young talent. You got Granlund, who might, make the next step this year. Matt Dumba, I have a lot of respect for him, what he can do as a defenseman. So, Minnesota has some guys coming. Maybe they didn't sign some free agents or make trades, but I think the depth they have coming underneath, I think at least will keep them in the wild card hunt. But I don't know if they're a playoff team this year. What do you think, Bill?
There's one point from last year that I didn't want to bring up. They had Spurgeon missed more than 10 games, Scandella missed more than 10 games, Prosser missed more than 10 games, and Dumba missed over 20. they're all defense.
Mm-hmm.
So they did have a little bit of health issues on the back end last year, and their problem, especially early on, was they couldn't keep the puck out of the net until they found Dubnyk. But I also kind of wonder if they kind of just got healthy too. So I think they're a good team. I think it seems like it's just the year, like it's a yearly thing now. Mike Yao gets the call from upstairs, says he's on the hot seat, and then all of a sudden they decide to win 20 games.
Yeah, I mean, what Mike Yao was like, he was fired. They lost that game like 7-0, right? And you're like, God, this guy's done. And then like from that game on, they didn't lose again. Like it was unbelievable. Like, that guy was like, you thought like the next day you're gonna wake up and he's fired, and somehow he rebounded. That's crazy.
That's why Pominville's so good on that team. He'll get like halfway through the season, and you'll be like, "Where are all the goals?" And then he'll put up 20, and then he's got 28.
And then you look up and he gets 30 goals, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
He put up his numbers. So Minnesota, they're a fringe team for sure. I think they're missing kind of a piece that they need to propel them to go further in the playoffs.
Forward or defense?
Probably forward. Like I said, Dumba, they got some nice pieces that are kind of young too on the back end. Scandell's pretty good too. So I think that they'll be all right, and they'll kind of just truck along like they do every season. They'll hit a couple hot spots, and they'll probably hit a wild card. I just don't know. I think they'll probably flame out again. I don't really see them doing too much this year. They're like middle of the pack, you know. They're kind of in that spot right now where they got to decide: do we kind of get those young guys from down low and bring them up and see what they can do, or do we get a couple pieces at the deadline and make a big push? So Minnesota will be interesting more in the middle to the end of this year, I think, and depending on what the GM decides to do, they could either make a big push this year with some pickups, or they'll kind of just be fluttering around, I think, again, come playoff time.
So let me ask this question before we jump. Whipple, I'll throw it to you. You know, Yao's, like we said, has been the hot seat every single year. Let's say Minnesota makes the playoffs. They win a round, let's say. Then they're out again the second round. Does he survive the season, or to some point you gotta move on. You gotta like get to the next stage.
I mean, that's tough because after the start they had and that 7-0 loss, and he doesn't get fired, I mean, making it to the playoffs is what your goal should be from the start of the season. And, I mean, only one team can win the cup. But I think for him to keep his job, they would have to I
think they got to win at least 2 rounds. They have to go the next step, right?
They can't win a round and then go get swept.
Yeah.
You're going to have to, maybe conference finals, maybe
these semifinals.
You got to win 2 rounds, I think, for him to stick around.
The way the playoffs shake out, too, I mean, you're playing the division so much during the year, and you're basically going to be playing that division again in the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't know if it's just more game planning or what, but they just need to figure it out.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Interesting stuff there. Some good stuff. So we're going to go to my next team here, and maybe one of my favorites that we're going to talk about because it's just, this is an interesting team. I'll start this one. It's Winnipeg, the Jets. They're always a fun team to watch because that building is so electric. They made that big move at the deadline. They got Tyler Myers. They got Drew Stafford. I thought before Stafford's even traded that he was probably one of the biggest pieces available at the deadline. He turned out to prove me right. He had a great season, or great second half. I don't even know what you call it, a quarter of the season in Winnipeg. They brought him back. They got Brendan Lemieux was coming. They got Joel Armia coming from Buffalo. I mean, Armia in particular, and I was a huge fan of his. I think he's going to be a good NHL player. I'll probably put in the third line this year. They got Ladd. They got Little. They got Wheeler. Perreault, he's back. Tobias Enstrom, I'm a big fan of his. Then they got Scheifele, who's an up-and-coming player. So there's a lot going on in Winnipeg. But when we come back to it, I'm not a huge fan of, the goalie wins you games. But in Winnipeg, you got to have something there. And, Pavlik, he was okay last year, but then he struggled. And then you got the young kid Hutchinson there. He played well last year. He won himself, 21 games. So goaltending might be the biggest thing that Winnipeg has to look to figure out if they're going to win. Winnipeg is another team that it's tough. They're in a tough division. I think where they finished last year is about right, and I think they're going to probably be in that same spot this year. It's another thing you got to think about too is Bufflin. He's in a contract year. What are they going to do with him? Are they going to keep him? They're going to move him. There's a lot going on in Winnipeg. So, Bill, what do you think?
Winnipeg, I like them too. They're a good team. I definitely think they're a team that's kind of like, if you will, built for the playoffs. They gave Anaheim pretty much all they could handle. I will say they didn't do much in the offseason, but Frolic could be a sneaky, got lost from the team, if you will.
Yeah.
I think he was a really good all-around player. He did everything for them. He even put up 42 points at his age. I think that could be a great pickup for Calgary and kind of like a sneaky loss for Winnipeg. But you kind of stole my thunder. My biggest thing is Pavelec. When Paul Maurice came right out as soon as basically the season ended and said Pavelic's our guy and he's our guy going forward and that's just how it's going to go, I think it's a huge mistake. Hutchinson, I feel, could have been in running for Rookie of the Year. He put up 21 wins his rookie season. He looked great. He had over a 9-10. And I just really think he's the goalie of the future, and the future for them needs to be now, especially in the back end. I feel like you know what you're going to get for Pavelec. He's played over 1,000 games. He's not going to surprise you all of a sudden and just start standing on his head and start winning games for you. The thing I do love about Winnipeg, though, is their D is young, and it is good. And it's going to be good for a while. Like you're saying, Trouba, Emstrom, and then pickup of Myers. They're going to be really solid in the back end for a while. They just got to kind of Kane, even though they wanted to get rid of him, I think it's going to be another, kind of a nice loss too for them. So I think offense might be a little problem, but they play hard and they play heavy. So as long as they can make it through the regular season, it'll be just like last year. Look out, because whoever they're going to play, they're going to come at you. They're going to come at you hard. And when they come or when you got to go to Winnipeg, their fans are going to give it to you.
So I want to mention here, if I flip it to you, Kyle. We talked about the offense maybe taking a hit here in a little bit for Winnipeg, but you're getting Alex Burmistrov back this year from Russia. So is he a guy maybe that can jump in and fill that Kane role? Well, maybe not Kane's role, but can he pick up some points? So Kyle, what do you think? Winnipeg.
I think like last year, the playoff series versus Anaheim, that was probably one of the funnest series in the whole Stanley Cup playoffs that you get to watch. I just love the way they play. I love their building. And I think they're a playoff team, like you said. If they can find that goalie, then I agree. I don't think Pavelic's the guy. The hockey town is unbelievable. I just honestly love the way that they play hockey. They hit. They're fast. They can score. Big fan of Ladd. I think if they can solve that goalie issue, they can make that run in the playoffs.
I don't even think they need to solve the goalie issue. They just got to play the right one. I think they have the goalie. They just need to give him the shot and see if he can go for the whole season and play 50, 60 games.
Yeah, this point of view, like I said, it makes me, I won't say sick is the word, but it kind of gives me a little bit of the chills because I'm the guy who tells you that, whatever, a goalie's a goalie, you'll be fine, whatever, you'll get one, you'll get by. But, in this case of Winnipeg, I think the goaltending can bring him down. They just need a goalie to be, I guess you say, okay, decent. You don't need a goalie to stand in his head. So if they just get decent goaltending, which is really hard to not get in today's NHL, I think they'll be fine. They'll be a playoff team. I don't know if they're going to jump one of the top teams in the division, but I think they'll be in the playoffs. So Winnipeg, again, they're one of my favorite teams to just follow and see what's going on because there's a lot going on in Winnipeg, and it's pretty cool. They're an up-and-coming team for sure. So let's jump to
my favorite.
Yeah, our good friend to the Dallas Stars. Last year was their year. They got all their guys. Last year was the year.
They were my sleeper pick. I thought they were going to kill it. They did have injuries, so I'm still going to hold on to it because I think this year is going to be even better. The Dallas Stars, baby, look out. They are coming for you. I really think that with what they did last year, they're a good team. Sagan, Ben played unreal last year. Look for them to do it again. And not only did they not lose much, they lost Enroth. They picked up Oduya, Sharp, and Niemi. This team is going to be the team maybe to beat. And I think that with their offensive firepower, all they have to do is get a little bit from the back end. And if they can just have Niemi played okay, played decent. That's all they need because they didn't get any goaltending last year. You're getting Nikushkin back, who missed almost all of last season. I think he played like 7 games. And, I mean, just adding everything, adding Sharp, Sagan, Ben, Nikushkin, the team is just going to be it's a freight train. I think it's a freight train, and they're coming off the tracks.
I mean, you had Klingberg, too, who missed a lot of time last year, and he's a great defenseman. And
he could have been Rookie of the Year, too.
Yeah, I mean, he missed time. I think if he didn't miss time, he does win Rookie of the Year. Dallas, I mean, I'll say this, for a good friend, Lindy Ruff, if you don't get it this year, I think your time's run out in Dallas. And that is a talented team. That is a very talented, that's a cup contending team. And now they need to make waves this year. What do you think, Whipple?
I think I have them at the top of my Central Division. Just with all that talent that you mentioned, like how could Lindy not get this team in the playoffs? And even looking at last year, they finished with 92 points, 7 out of the playoffs. And, I mean, you got to ask yourself, if Sagan didn't go down, do they sneak in last year? So I think if everyone can stay healthy and Niemi steals a couple, I think that they will be top team in the Central, if not probably – I don't know. I love this team. I like how they're built, and I think they're on pace to have a great year.
I mean, you both said Niemi has to have a good season. So are we going to say that Lettinen's out? Is he not the goal anymore?
I think so. I do. I think
he was like 27th and like worst in the league. I think he did not have a good year.
The only problem is Lettinen. You never know where you're going to get. One year he's going to play like every other good goalie in the league. He'll give you over that 920, 930, well in the 920, 930 range. But then every once in a while I don't know what happens. He just falls apart. He lets in 6 goals, and you turn around and you're like, what happened, And so I think the whole reason, I don't think you bring Niemi in if you don't think you're going to give him the starting job. I think they look at his past, they see that he's won a cup, even though it was with Chicago, and he's just been more consistent than Lettinen has. So I think at least to start the season, you give Niemi the starting job, and unless he, for some reason, falls like a rock, Lettinen he's a great backup, if you will. So, I mean, it's not really a problem, I don't think. If you got to play a two-headed monster, you can play it, which is good because that's kind of what happened to Dallas last year. Is they're another team that's putting up a lot of points, but they're losing game 6-5. And so if you now have a goalie like Lettinen that falls apart and that happens, you now have Niemi, or vice versa. If Niemi falls apart, you now have Lettinen, and it's obviously a solid choice to go to.
Who was their backup last year?
Oh, boy.
Because I think with having Niemi and Lettinen, who could both be possible starters, do you think they push each other to play better?
Sorry to laugh. I just saw the list, though, and got to pull it up here. So here are the backup goalies for Dallas last year. We had a good friend, Anders Lindback, with his .875 save percentage. But, he comes to Buffalo and stands on his head, but whatever, that's fine. And then you got a good friend, Jonas Enroth, who, again, really wasn't that great when he went to Dallas.
And here's your big number. Lettinen had 34 wins last year with a .903, which is terrible. That means they're scoring. They're putting up big points.
He almost had 3 goals against the game.
Yeah, he almost had 3 goals against the game. That means Dallas is scoring 4. So all you need Niemi to do is keep that more around the 2 range. You're winning a lot of games.
Do you think that pushes Lettinen to be better? Because last year he didn't have a guy behind him that was really threatening to take his job.
That's possible, but like I said, I think the thing is you bring Niemi in, he's starting. So I mean, it could work the other way. I think you could have Lettinen sitting behind him and be like, Niemi, if you falter at all, Lettinen's sitting there, and I'm not afraid to play him. So it could work. It all depends how they want to use it. Do they want to use it as just like friendly competition, or do they really want to use it as you guys are battling? Let's see who wins.
With Lindy, the time in Buffalo and even a little bit in Dallas, he really butchers the goaltending situation. One goalie plays seems like a month, and the other goalie doesn't see any time. He really struggles to manage that backup goalie, and if he picks one guy and runs with them, I think he's going to run with that guy. I don't see Lindy, making the switch. I think he picks his guy, and that's his guy, and then he rides that guy. Because it'll be hard for that backup to get in a rhythm the way Lindy goes. He likes to ride one guy. So, that'll definitely be interesting to watch in Dallas. And, they got to do it this year. There's going to be some changes in Dallas. Maybe not with the roster, but definitely the coaching. When Nil, he's a good GM, but he makes a lot of good moves. But is Lindy going to cost him a job? It'll be interesting to see if Dallas doesn't get it done this year. What's going to happen on that team? Because there's a lot of talent on that roster. So let's go to our final team here at the basement of the Central Division last year.
The basement.
The Colorado Avalanche. They lose O'Reilly, but they bring in some talent. Zadorov, Grigorenko, okay. Soderberg, he's not bad. You bring in Boschman, he's near the end of his career, but he'll help out the blue line a little. But really the problem is it's the blue line in Colorado. Zadorov will help. Boschman will help a little, but how much? It's a lot of talent up front, but, you got to have Varlamov stand on his head every single night. What do you think, Colorado, Kyle?
This is one of my favorite teams in the Central, and I just don't understand how you go from 112 points in 2013 to the last in the Central with 90 points.
Well, by being one of the worst possession teams in hockey is how you do it.
But I think this year they're going to have a bounce-back year. All their young talent with Landeskog, Duchesne, McKinnon, still got Iginla. I think that they're going to figure it out. They have Tanguay. And everyone that you mentioned, like Soderberg, Boschman, Zadorov, Como, all these guys are over 200 pounds. So I don't know if their idea of thinking is that they're beefing up and they want to change their style or they just don't want to get pushed around. But I think they have the talent to put another 112-point season together.
It's, for Colorado, like I said, it's puck possession. They score a lot of goals and they score it quick. But when you look at their possession stats, they're one of the worst in the league. And, there's teams like, last year it could be Calgary. The year before that it was Colorado. There's teams every year that break the mold, but they eventually fall back to earth. And maybe this is the team that Colorado is. It'll be... They didn't really update their defense that much. Again, Zadorov, I think, is going to be a great player if he can get his maturity, under control. But I don't know if that was enough. I don't know if that's going to get them over the top in a tough division to be a playoff team.
I will say Tyson Barrie is really good. I really liked what he did last year. Eric Johnson was hurt for a lot of the season. But like you said, once you get past those two, what do you got? There's not much there. And Zadorov coming in, he's going to help, but he's still young. Is he really going to help that much to get him, over the mini hump that they have? They did still put up 90. And just because they're last in the Central, they would have been middle of the pack or higher in a lot of other divisions. But I'm going to have to go the other way with this one. They're good, but their whole division's better. They have a lot of young talent, and even if they do beef up, it's the regular season's a haul. It's not the playoffs. You're not beating on a team till they're all hurt, and then all of a sudden you can start scoring goals and get through 7 games. You got to get through 82. And I've never been a huge fan of the Avalanche as a team in general. When Iginla is your top scorer at 59 points, there's probably a problem. The young guys aren't stepping up as much as they need to be yet. I think losing O'Reilly is going to hurt.
He's one of the better possession guys,
Exactly. So Colorado's always been one of those teams where they kind of laugh at the possession stats and said that's not going to hurt us, and it hasn't helped so far. So, we'll see again. I definitely think losing O'Reilly, it'll be interesting to see if they stay one of the worst possession teams or even maybe get a little worse. Like you said, Landeskog, Duchesne, and McKinnon, they get the puck, they skate as fast as they can down the ice, and they shoot, and then the other team holds it in their zone for 5 minutes. So Colorado's tough because they do have a lot of high-end talent that's young, but I just don't think they have what it takes to get over the hump and get into the playoffs this year.
I think they have I'll put it this way, they have top talent. But after you get past those top 3-4 guys, I don't think there's anything really behind it. Mm-hmm. I think it's the problem. You have Duchesne, you have McKinnon, Landeskog, okay, I'll give you a Ginla, I'll even give you a Tanguay. But beyond that, I mean, where are you going? Cody McLeod, Talbot.
Soderberg.
I mean, Soderberg is there now. I got Mitchell. I mean, is Grigorenko going to do something for you? I mean, probably not.
He's not going to be able to keep up with any of those guys.
No, that's the thing too, you know. And he doesn't play good defense either, which is another problem they have. So I don't know. I'm skeptical. You know, I'll go with. I think Bill put it a good way. They're a good team, but they're the worst team in a good division. And that's the way I see it.
With a healthy Eric Johnson, if he stays healthy the whole year, I don't know. That top two pair, I think, has top 10 or top talent that is one of the best pairings, I think, in the NHL. And they're young. If these guys can mature, if they solve their possession problem, I think they could be a good team. I'm going to have to disagree with you guys on this one.
I think the key is what you just said. Their top pairing's good, and their top line of all the young kids are good. But if they're going against Taves,
you got to play their teams. You got to play their lines, you know?
You know, last year it was Sod, so maybe Dano. And now those two kind of cancel each other out. You don't think, you know,
every other team is deeper. They can go 2-3 lines deep. Or Colorado, I mean, you get 2 lines deep, you know? I just think, I mean, at the top level talent, they can match what the other teams in the division have, but what they can't match is the depth. And I think they also can't match the blue line. I think the blue line is not that good. And when you're playing a team, you know, teams like Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota, St. Louis, even the Jets, nightly, I mean, those teams can put up goals. And I can't. I want to like Colorado, but I can't. I mean, if they're in maybe a different division, I could see it. But I just feel like that division, they're going to get beat up. And, I mean, 90 points, like you said, Bill, another division, yeah, that's going to maybe put you in the middle of the pack. But you're still not a playoff team at 90 points. So I just can't see Colorado getting over the hump to be a playoff team. I don't even see them getting out of the basement in that division, quite honestly. It's tough. It's going to be tough for Colorado.
I mean, even with all their problems, they're only, 5 games out, potentially?
Yeah, but if you say, well, Dallas is going to be a better team,
they're going to be a great team.
Okay, so now you're 9 points behind the Jets. You saying they're going to be a better team than Winnipeg? Are they going to pass Nashville, Chicago, Minnesota, St. Louis? And that's a lot of teams you got to jump.
Yeah,
I mean they're not going to win the division. I think we all can agree on that. So I mean, you got to beat out, you know, Minnesota, Winnipeg, at least, and then the other division. You know, you're going to have to beat out like Calgary, Vancouver, LA to get a wild card spot. So I just don't think that Colorado is far enough along to be better than any of those teams.
I think the best thing that could happen for Colorado this year is to have a bad year and somebody get fired. And they need to just turn it around, have different thinking in the organization, and then maybe then if they can, it's kind of, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound a lot like, they're kind of like Pittsburgh last year. Now, obviously they don't have Malkin and Crosby, but what I'm saying is they got the top talent, but once you get past that, there's nothing.
No doubt.
And it's exactly what happened to Pittsburgh last year is if somebody shuts down Crosby, or at least in the word shuts down Crosby, once you get past those top 2 lines, you're having a field day with the bottom. You don't even know who's the bottom 6. And they did well with fixing that, but it's whatever. So, and I think that's a problem with Colorado. They're going to need to have another bad season. Well, I think they might even have a worse one, maybe. And then hopefully it'll open the GM eyes, or he gets tossed, and then they can be like, okay, we have a serious problem down here. We need to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado it's an interesting team what's going to happen there, you know, this season. If they fall, if they don't get up, you know, is Sakic in trouble? You know, as the coach, I would say, is probably in trouble. And then you look at the roster. I mean, do you sit there and go, well, geez, you know, I wonder what I can get for Matt Duchene. You know, if I want to move him and see if I can get more pieces for that one guy. You know, try to spread out your talent instead of having it so top heavy. So Colorado, I mean, that'll be an interesting team. So before I close out, what I want to do, we talked about all the teams in the division. I'll start it off. We'll run down the list from top to bottom where you got teams finishing. So I'll start it off. I got Dallas winning the division. I got Nashville coming in second, and Chicago rounding out the top three. Because for some reason, something just tells me don't bet against Chicago. I got Minnesota as the fourth team. St. Louis dropping all the way down to the fifth team. And then I have Winnipeg and Colorado, finishing out. Winnipeg, I hate to put them that low, but that division's so hard, it seems like it's the right spot for them. Even looking at it now, I'm like, well, I want to flip them, but I'm going to stick with that. That's how I see it going down. Bill, how about you?
I'm still struggling, but I think I'm going to stick with – I think St. Louis is going to be fine. They'll probably finish top again. I love Dallas. I'll put them at 2. And this is where it gets tricky for me. I think I'm going to go Minnesota. I think Dubnyk obviously isn't going to do what he did last year, but he will do enough that the team will be able to stay afloat, especially with a couple guys getting old there. And then I'm going to go Chicago, Winnipeg. So, rather than I got Nashville, Colorado, I guess. The only thing that doesn't scare me, but Nashville's so defense heavy, and teams are starting to try and just score. Especially in the division they're in. If teams start putting up goals, they're not going to be able to keep up. And I like Winnipeg, so I'm going to try and sneak them in the 5th spot.
Nashville, pretty low. Interesting. Kyle, how are you?
I'm going winning division. I'm having Nashville. Complete opposite of Bill, but just those young D, I think that with fresh legs, young legs, they move the puck well. They move it quick. They're out of their zone quick. They just push the pace of the play. And I think just with how good their D is and how good their goalie is, I think that's one of the most important things in hockey. And you'll always find ways to score goals. So I'm having them winning the division.
If they had more time, I'd have a field day with you right now, but go ahead.
Dallas, I think they'll have a great year. They're going to finish right behind Nashville for me. Then I got St. Louis, just another typical St. Louis regular season. Then I got my boys from Colorado. I know that the puck possession problems.
Playoff team, Colorado?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
I think they're jumping in a wild card spot, possibly.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, with the other division, you don't know how it's going to shake out, but this division is so strong. I think they're going to have a good year. And then right by them, Winnipeg. I love the way they play. I love the hockey town that they're in. I think they're going to have a good year. And then my bottom 2, I love Chicago, but just with all the players that they dealt or that aren't there anymore, and with all the unknowns, the unknown with Kane, you don't know how Dano is going to be right from the start. You don't know how all these new players are going to fit in. I got them missing the playoffs, even though I'm a big Chicago fan. I just don't think they have it this year. And then Minnesota, they didn't make a big change. I don't like their head coach. They don't start very good every year, and I don't see them going. I mean, where do they go? 28-9-3 to finish the season. I don't see that happening again. So that's my Central Division.
Interesting stuff. Interesting to see the. And it really, for all three of us, is a big difference in how we see teams. That's interesting. That's something we thought about when we added, Whipple here to our little round table. We wanted to get a different view. It's because Bill and I agree on a lot because we see the game the same way, but Kyle brings something different. You can see between the three of us, there's different views, and that's, I think that, contributes a lot to the podcast here. So that is it. We went through the Central Division here. Talked a lot of hockey. It was some interesting stuff. So we promise we'll be back next week. Look at the last team or last division in the West, the Pacific Division, which is also a tough division. The West is a good, it's a good conference. So for Chad and Bill and joining us today, Kyle, we appreciate having you on. Maybe we'll see Kyle again next week. So for Chad, Bill, and Kyle, signing off, and thanks for listening.
That's it.